Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, the 3rd of May. Welcome to May, and welcome back to the book of Exodus. We continued this morning looking at Exodus 19, verses 1 to 16. It's the story of God leading the Israelites through Moses and Aaron to the foot of Mount Sinai, this wonderful mountain that just rises, soaring up high in the desert, a landmark. And interestingly, of course, for many of the local people, mountains were places that were sacred, and it was a place where God dwelt. Now, God doesn't obviously dwell only on the mountaintops, but there is this incredible symbolism. And I think even for ourselves, and I certainly speak for myself as I stand and I look at the grandeur of, for example, the Drakensberg Mountains, then I am in awe. I don't believe God dwells on the top of those mountains, but one is in awe of the splendor and the majesty and the magnificence of a mountain. So here we have a mountain in the middle of the desert, and God brings them to the foot of the mountain, and he calls Moses up the mountain, gives him instructions. The people are to sanctify themselves, they are to wash and clean and be willing and ready to continue again with the consecration and this whole establishment of this diverse group of people as a single nation. And so Moses sets the instructions. No one is to touch the mountain the following day, not even an animal. And should an animal or even a person touch the mountain, set foot on the foothills of the mountain and begin to climb up, they are to be killed immediately. Not touched by human hands because they are themselves now defiled, but to be stoned or shot with an arrow and simply discarded. And one can't but help think about the magnificence of God and how in the Old Testament this is portrayed by the incredible splendor and grandeur of God. Towards the end of verse 16, or that reading, toward verse 16, you read how that magnificence of God settles on the top of the mountain, what we would call a theophany. Think of that as a godly cacophony. And there's thunder and lightning and that incredibly long blast of the bugle. And the people trembled. They were in fear and in awe at what they were seeing. And it struck me that firstly, in the Old Testament, God truly was feared, and people would have very little to do with God, and they would want the priest or the king to intercede and stand before them, between them and God. Of course, for us in the New Testament, the temple has been torn in two, and we have the right to enter into the Holy of Holies and enter into the presence of God, symbolized really by our ability to pray ourselves to God and his ability and desire and willingness to talk directly with us. No more is there this intermediary of the priest or the king who stands between us and God. And yet here is the other learning. God is still high and mighty and lifted up. And we do not simply walk into his presence in some kind of slipshod, haphazard fashion. He is still God, high and mighty and lifted up. And we need to find in our relationship with God a balance. We don't just walk in and treat him like he's a long-lost mate with lots of backslapping and jokes. We do so with great reverence and humility. This is the God who loves us sufficient that he was willing to die for us on the cross. This is the God who gave us freely the offer of eternal life. And all we need to do is to accept it and acknowledge that God is God. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Is that John 14:6. And we must remember this. So it's that balance. We are permitted into the presence of God, but we do so with great humility and holiness. God is high and mighty and lifted up. So don't walk into God as if he's a long-lost friend and treat him like that. Treat him with great respect and deference and reverence, for he is our God. And so find out what for you is the right way of doing that, and then worship God, worship him. Don't take him lightly. Folks, we'll chat again, probably not for the rest of this week. I go into training. We have our clergy school starting this afternoon, and it only finishes on Friday afternoon. So our mornings will be busy, taken up with that. So my apologies, probably only going to chat again next week. But have a wonderful week, and we'll catch up later. God bless.